and make a plug also in the middle of that. So I, in planning the Black History Month, talking with Brendan obviously around it, was interested in their walking tour. They actually, the Black Panther Party Alumni Legacy Network actually does a walking tour of downtown Oakland just to kind of talk about in real time all the significance of the Black Panthers and Oakland and its history. And we all work here in one way or another at various times in our career. People are in different parts of the county, and we walk the streets regularly. I think it sometimes don't see things and really understand the significance. So I was really interested. That was what I wanted to do. I was like, oh, we're gonna do that. We didn't connect in enough time, so I ended up with the other event. But then he reached back out to me, and we began having just such a powerful conversation about the connection between the history and the work that he and so many others did long before some of us were born, certainly some before I was born. And so I was like super excited and like, we have to have you come. And I'll quote him as saying, I'm all in. We're all in. We want to support you guys in the work you're doing. And so let me just introduce who he is, but I wanted to let you know how he got here. I can't do it without reading, so thank you so much. But Dr. Satiru Ned, then known as James Mott, joined the Black Panther Party in May of 1968 and was with them to 1982 in Sacramento, California, while attending Sacramento City College. Dr. Satiru was a high-profile member of the Black Panther Party. He was a member of the Lumpin, the Black Panther Party singing group. A book was written by Professor Ricky Vincent called Party Music, the untold story of the Lumpin and their influence on the Black Power movement. One of the Lumpin songs, entitled Won't Be No More, will be featured on one of the episodes of the third installment of the award-winning Eye on the Prize documentary. And I just gotta say, I grew up watching Eye on the Prize all the time, so I'm very excited to see that documentary. Some of his duties include Central Headquarters Security, working in the Bobby Seale and retired Judge Lionel Wilson mayoral campaigns. He was the chairman of the Black Student Alliance, which saw to the needs of Black college students all over the country. It was one of the 65 community survival programs documented by Stanford University. Dr. Satiru was a teacher at the award-winning, right here, Oakland Community School and Learning Center that was started and ran by Black Panther Party members. He has appeared on numerous television, video productions, radio, print, online publications, and many other social media platforms. He is responsible for the network operations currently of the BPPALN, which is the Black Panther Party Alumni Legacy Network. Embracing the principles, anyone that has kids in school should know this phrase, of each one reach one, each one teach one, Dr. Satiru Ned continues to work in the interest of the community with organizations and community groups across America as an educator, innovator, entrepreneur, and a survival program architect. And so if we could give him a hearty welcome. What we're gonna do, I'm gonna pass these out because he's gonna refer to these as we kind of go. And then I'll let him do some introductions and we're gonna kind of have a conversation.
Absolutely. I also wanted that just my wife, Dr. Zafira Ned.
Hi, everyone.
She handles a lot of our social media for the network. We're actually been together for 30 years, and our work continues within the community. So I just want you to know who she is, and she does that. So she's actually live streaming this as we continue. So
yes.
So Dr. Satiru, the obvious burning question we all have, especially those of us who were not in the lived experience and ourselves, is can you tell us a little bit about the history of the Black Panther Party, maybe the parts people don't normally hear about, and tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, and of course I'll entwine some of my own personal story before I read this statement, I had the opportunity to talk with everybody with the exception of Malcolm, including Martin. I'll tell you about that conversation. But I just wanted to open this up, a message of resilience and purpose. The Black Panther Party was the last and perhaps most significant domestically based revolutionary political organization to challenge American racism, imperialism, and injustice. At its height, the Black Panther Party encompassed 45 chapters in the United States. That doesn't include our National Committee to Combat Fascism offices, which were part of the party, which were actually manned by our other brothers and sisters from every community, including the Jewish community, and I'll tell you that story. We established an international branch, an embassy in Algeria. Yes, you heard me right. It was an embassy. Shaking knows about an embassy in Algeria, which actually was used as a common place for meeting for everyone across the world. And everyone who attended were members of these following countries, which I'm about to name. We trained with operatives in the Congo, formed coalitions with political organizations in Zimbabwe, Mozambique, South Africa, North and South Vietnam, North Korea, Japan, the People's Republic of China, India, Uruguay, Peru, Nicaragua, Cuba, Palestine, Iraq, Iran, Israel. We had 2 chapters there in Tel Aviv as well as Jerusalem. A lot of them, they came from Morocco and Algeria, and of course one of their main things was we want decent housing fit for the shelter human being. We're actually at this point trying to get in touch with those elders. Of course, it's a little difficult right now in that area to tell that story, that continuation. Ultimately, Black Panther Party's influence and power provoked a frenzied effort by the U.S. federal government and local law enforcement, which most of them were actually at that time used and told and directed by the federal government. It's not what I'm saying. I had a chance to go to a conference 2002, and it was composed of police captains, sergeants, and officers, and that's what they told me. You guys were doing some great things, but we were directed by the federal government. And it was enforcement to destroy the structure and either assassinate or immobilize its members. And an effort today, we have one last original Black Panther Party member. People now today are going to prison as victims of the politics of America. He is the last political prisoner, and that is Mumia Abu Jamal, affectionately known as Wesley Cook, who joined the Black Panther Party of Philadelphia at 15 and a half. And if you've ever heard any of his broadcasts, he had that deep voice at 15 and a half. So this is part of, I want to give you an overall view. How did we get from that point of an organization that started here in Oakland, and it was a local organization, to a world concept? How did we get to a point where the Chinese government requested to see the Black Panther Party through Henry Kissinger before Richard Nixon could go there twice? So these stories of the diplomatic relationships that we have, and they still tell the stories in China, North Korea, about the Black Panther Party and how they supported the movement of all people. We had made the connection that it was not just a struggle in our community, it was the total struggle for everybody. So there were several periods, and we actually have a 8-module class that we have been teaching once a week, and it's the origin, the original vision. It's about how the party grew and our intellect grew and how we viewed the world. Survival programs, COINTELPRO, and the ideology of the Black Panther Party, which was based upon dialectical materialism, hypothesis or observation, participation, and study, no more than what you might learn in sociology class or psychology classes on an advanced level, but taking it further than just that. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my generation, from civil rights to human rights. The 10-point platform is based upon human rights. Because even then, when we would watch our young people like us sit at the lunch counters, and I'd ask ourselves, could we take that kind of treatment? I mean, don't we have a right to stop someone? We can make a point, but I don't like you pouring hot coffee on me. All these things that they suffered in that generation. So we came up with the conclusion that unless you're respected for human rights, civil rights don't mean anything because they differ from country to country, from government to government. So human rights are universal. So my generation, coming from civil rights, growing up, my father was in the service. We were in Sacramento at the time. I tell, and because we got a lot to cover, so I'm pretty much going through this to show you how I personally became involved. I was cutting school. I was skipping school. Senior cut day. It was legitimate among students. And I happened to be downtown Sacramento that May day of 1967. I was standing there. I wasn't doing anything but watching the children. All of a sudden I saw them with the governor, Ronald Reagan, and then they whisked him off. And they left the children standing there with their chaperones. So then a couple hundred yards down the way, we saw some people going in, and we all went in behind them. So for the first time, we were just on and off, looking at this group of people who were supposed to be in the balcony, start reading the concept about a right to defend themselves at that point in time, and painting the landscape of what law enforcement was about at that point in time. We'll get to that also. So I didn't join at that point in time. I was exposed to it. The next year, right after Martin Luther King, there were some people coming to Sacramento. I was a teenager. I was like having teenage fun during the summer in Sacramento, California. Wonderful hot weather, going to the river, jumping in the water with my friends. And all of a sudden, Bobby Hutton. Who is Bobby Hutton? 2 days later, he was a 17-year-old. So it wasn't about Huey P. Newton or any of those folks because they were not in that type of line. It was about Bobby Hutton as a young person. You have to realize the difference today than what we see with our youth who briefly experienced a civil rights movement that was actually controlled, and we can prove that by this government, and how these youth were destabilized by groups like Antifa, who were heavily infiltrated, telling young people to throw bricks through windows. And these kids here were saying the police will get us. And they said, no, they won't because it's strength in numbers. So as opposed to something that was positive, they have learned how to do what they do in numbers. You'll have another element, and I'm going to get back to this, an element of the influence of young folks coming in and teaching them cartel methods. I'm telling you what we know and what we're being told for a fact. And are we talking to folks? Yes, we are. Because no matter who they are, there is respect for who we are. So the idea of steering them in the right direction, we all know for a fact that we won't be able to save everybody. But there is a process of young people, part of these walking tours and going into the schools, is what we want to do to steer them in the right direction. So my journey, after joining the party, I was running track and field. And a couple of my good friends and cohorts were at San Jose State. I was at Sacramento State. You might know who they are, Tommy Smith and John Carlos. So we all had planned the boycott was going to be extensive, not only for the Olympics, but all sports. Well, to make a long story short, we know what took place. And I saw them being honored again, finally, for years and decades. Tommy Smith and John Carlos were blacklisted, not unlike in all of us. Took away 10 gold medals, stripped him, and the young man who was on the podium with him, we called Peter White Lightning. He was from Australia. He had on a sign that said, "I support human rights." He went back to Australia and was totally blacklisted. It was the beginning of an era of suppression, of people seeing that here's a group of young people who are making a statement, but they're just not doing it without thinking. They're coming to a conclusion that there's an organized way to make things happen. That's what they didn't like and respect. So, 1969, I was still running, got called in by my coach. He told me I had visitors. I said, "What, I'm going to class?" He said, "No, he's visibly shaken. I had visitors from the FBI." And they said if you do not stop organizing, you will suffer the consequences. I was on the campus as a party member. If I did, I could go to any school in the nation, Harvard, Yale, anywhere. They would pay a full ride. This was offered to people all over the country. It's like, we know your potential, we know what you'll do if you stay, so we'll try to destabilize. I never did that. In 1969, when COINTELPRO began, let the bloodbath begin, we used to deliver papers to every state officer, including the governor, the attorney general, Jesse Anu, who made the statement, by reading our papers, that we were feeding more children than the U.S. government. And we'll get to those programs in just a moment. Just give me an overview of my time and tenure. After that, I was in the office in 1969 in Sacramento, California, when COINTELPRO rolled out. When they brought the LA tax squad with the Sacramento officers, attacked the office on a celebration day. I'll never forget Father's Day. We had brought together young men, some formerly incarcerated, juveniles, with their families and children. There was at least 5,000 people. Anybody know where Oak Park, California is? You ever been in Sacramento? Anyone been? Okay. You know where the park is, 35th. I want you to imagine a giant celebration. And we were attacked. There was a whole story behind that. You can Google all that. Then I was transferred down here to Oakland, where I engaged in some of those things that she actually mentioned. I know she has some other things she wants to ask as we move along. So I just wanted to give you a highlight. Some of the other things of the Oakland Community School and Learning Center. That was probably, that's a highlight of my life. The school, of course, won an award for educational excellence, 1977. I don't know if any other school has done so since. And it was each one teach one, each one reach one. When the children tested in the schools, we tested against the Oakland Public Schools. They were 3 to 4 grades ahead. Many of them have gone forward in great careers in entertainment, in business. Some went into medicine, some raised families. They still tell their story today. But I want to mention to you also that many of our students in East Oakland at that time came from the 66th Street Village. I don't know how many of you know the story of Felix Mitchell and the infamous, at that time, what was in the community, heroin. If you notice, after every movement in America, what do? Heroin was present. After the party in 1982 was officially dissolved, crack cocaine. Then we saw what happened in the 90s, and today, every time after every movement, Black Lives Matter, they flooded our communities with fentanyl. And it's still growing. So understanding these things, how did we take these children who were supposed to be hardcore, the ones that end up with some of you in court, because of the conditions that they were raised in, and the fact that we were able to recruit these children and his lieutenants. And I had a conversation with him. He said, I'm thankful that's what you're doing. We're talking about a man at that time who was making $700,000 to $1 million a month. Multiply that, 20 times now. But he was willing to be all in to change those conditions. Why is Dr. Ned saying that? Because we reached out in Chicago. The same thing with the Peace Stone Nation, all these guys. Many of them ended up joining the Black Panther Party. It changed their whole lives. The story of Dr. Jimenez, who does stuff with Amy Goodman all the time, who he was on Democracy Now!, Puerto Rican gentleman, turned the Lincoln Park gang into a political organization, the Young Lords, and did the same thing in New York. Chicago, the concept of the original Rainbow Coalition, where our brothers and sisters were the young lords and the young patriots, the Native Americans, and the young patriots where they lived was called Hillbilly Harlem. Ooh, you don't have to think about what that difference is, right? North Chicago, there's a video out of who was Robert Lee in the meeting. The concept was that they were alt-right, Confederate flag waving folks from the West Virginia coal mines, like the Beverly Hillbillies, and from the rural areas of Indiana, Illinois, and parts around there. But they became our brothers and sisters as young people when we saw the same conditions existed. So the Black Panther Party started off with power to the people and black power. before that, for me, I started off in Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And like I told you, this is what shaped myself and the membership of why we all became Black Panther Party members. I met everyone except in 1967, I had a chance to talk to Dr. King. And we said, Dr. King, we're not going to Vietnam. We're not going to fight. We were high school students, you know. And he said, you know, I don't expect you to. You know, it says it's an unjust war. So that sort of set the tone for us at that point in time. So everyone else that we met, he was all about standing up for your constitutional rights. That had a heavy influence on me and all of us at that point in time. So people like Rosa Parks, who frequently came to school. Maya Angelou taught there 3 to 4 days a week. I mean, the list goes on in all these people who were right here in Oakland, California. Now, one thing I want to mention, if you look at the programs on there, the 65 programs, I want to know if you had anything that you wanted to.
I'll let you go on. Did everybody get one of the programs? So we're gonna make sure we have plenty. Okay. Okay.
And I just basically wanted you guys to, when you take a look at it, I think on the right bottom side, there's a section that talks about the legal aid and the legal sessions and classes that we would have with the community. One thing we did was to dispel the myth, and it still exists, about public defenders with the community. We don't, why? Because they don't understand. So we were just mentioning what happened after we come into the legal system. We would give classes to youth and to the families and to the people. And we would tell them who you're going to align yourself with. As when you come in there, you don't have the funding for at the day a Charles Gary or a William Kunstler or Johnny Cochran, who was our lawyer in Southern California when he was a law student, who defended and took on Black Panther Party cases when party members were illegally arrested constantly. So we didn't have that. So the idea of teaching them who their friends were in the court system. And that has been kind of turned around. And we're telling people, and we are out there telling them the truth about who you are and the historical significance of the work that you do. And that I'm hoping that when I'm talking to you, that there's truly concern, understanding what is happening in this community. Totally destabilized. We've never seen it like this before. Those 2 years of COVID where these kids were barely hanging on, dropped to the bone, and they were recruited. And some of you already know that. They were out in the streets. They weren't learning. So they had 2 years of coming together and creating all this behavior. And not to the fault of people who have moved here, as what they call millennials, and buying here. People are also victims because they took advantage, raising rents and making it impossible. This is what we call divide and conquer, no matter what your profession is. So it's nobody's fault on that end. They utilize that to create a forced migration. But understanding these concepts at this point in time and letting people know when you do have a legal situation, beyond being arrested, who your real friend is. Who do you need to listen to? No one's going to sell you out, but on the same thing, it has to be reciprocal. You have to understand exactly what this person has, where they come from, when there is nothing out there. And unfortunately, it's important to get back in these schools. You know, they're not even allowing them to learn the history of this city. If they learn the history of Oakland alone, they will see that people that look like them made great contributions, and they have another way to go. They don't know these things. They're not teaching them anything, and they refuse to in the Oakland Public Schools. I was telling them I did a presentation up at Chabot Space and Science Center, Afrofuturism. Do you know what they told me? That the Oakland Public Schools, none of the children are going to this center. The reason why I mentioned that, one of the big things that we did at Oakland Community Learning Center, we called it the Winner to the World. When we took these kids outside of their community, it changed their whole way of looking at everything. I took the kids from East Oakland and took them to Lake we did what, yeah, I know. We took a trip to the peninsula. One of the kids got, Mom, I don't know where we are. I think we left California. And so he said, we're near Palo Alto, Middle Park. Where is that? Do you understand what I'm saying? So this is part of that. Today, every day, we had a group of children, I think 25 to 30 of them. Took on a walk. They were 9 to 10. I loved it. They asked me more questions than a White House press corps. And you should hear their understanding. Remember that saying when we were growing up, they tell you my son or daughter is 13 going on 30? Well, it's true because they hear and see everything. They told me we hear and see everything. And what you're telling us today has given us this hope and understanding that we can make things change. Now, on our website, there's a section that you go into that's very extensive. There's a testimonial page. Some mornings I get up and read that because it's testimony from these children. And the idea is I don't want you to be a statistic that you already figured, especially black males from the 3rd grade, where you're going to end up in prison. Okay? And now we understand that then when they go, the box of cereal that's on your table, the furniture that you sit on, and everything in between, they're now working in the fields, 20 cents an hour. So they are working for corporate manufacturers who manufacture everyday foods. We haven't looked at it, it's all there. So how do we begin to understand the conditions that have brought them to a certain level? And then understanding how do we really show them that there is another way out of that. And it doesn't have to be done by an individual. It doesn't have to be done by you. There's certain things that you do. But who can you send them to? Who can you say, here's who you can talk to? This is part of why we're here today. I'm going to stop there. Let you go.
You're on a roll.
All right.
But you touched on a couple things that I want to follow up on, and you talked about kind of the 2-year period during COVID, which destabilized, I think generally everybody, but really destabilized young people who maybe were barely hanging on, as you said, and totally agree. And so what we're seeing in our field is a narrative on the news constantly, a focus, a hyper focus. I was telling someone that, the Black Joy Parade happened this weekend, and I would bet if we went to see the coverage on how much there was of the Black Joy Parade and all the positive things, we would barely see any on the news. So there is a very intentional narrative happening right now, and a lot of people don't understand that. And so I guess my question is, what is the connection from your perspective between what we are seeing today in terms of the narrative, and that history you're speaking of?
Okay, I'll give you another perfect example. I don't know if you guys know about the Life is Living Festival. It's held every year at Bobby Hutton Park, which, as a matter of fact, they have a meeting tonight to finally get that deferment park, because it was named Bobby Hutton Grove in 2016, but the city never finished it. The very young man who inspired me, as well as others, and he was the first Black Panther Party member to die as a member of the party at 17. But we gave the festival. I don't know, must have been 10, 12, 15,000 people out there. Youth. We had what we called, it was the Black Panther Party Survival Programs Revisited. They had Emoji Health Roots. Everybody was out there. Beautiful day. Youth were out there. There was not one issue. There was not one hippie, as I like to call it. There was not one break-in. There was not one fight. And people all over the city who attended sent it out to everyone and asked that same question. It was not covered by anyone. The narrative of this wonderful festival, this peaceful, beautiful day that brought everyone from youth to seniors together. And guess what? It was supposed to end, we started at 10 that morning, and it was supposed to end, I think, like about 6. And they still had stages up. It went to like 8 or 9 at night in the park. No incidents, no problem. It was a joyous occasion for the community to come together. You're right. A breakfast program. When we started the breakfast program, it was simply out of, we recognized the need. Children were eating, and we didn't need someone as a psychologist to come and tell us about brain deprivation or the inability for a child to learn. If I'm hungry, I don't care what you say, I'm not paying attention. You know, and then you're going to send me home and ain't nothing to eat there. So what am I to do now? I guess I'll go to the store and take a bag of chips. See how that ripple effect begins. We had mothers coming there with their babies. And how are you feeding this baby? Well, obviously you don't have the opportunity to naturally breastfeed your child. You have formula. No, I don't even have milk. I don't have diapers. I don't have anything. We said we have to do something about that. So thus we created the Women and Infant Children Program, which they tried to disclaim, but in 2016, with the anniversary, 16th anniversary, 4-day youth celebration here in Oakland, the museum, everywhere. People came from 30 nations. So it was proven, all those concepts that you see, but we never got publicity. And what happened when we started doing them and the community joined in, they had to admit. So all it did was embarrass America about what's not. And I'll give you another great example. We created the Sickle Cell Anemia Foundation. And we were at Central Headquarters, and somebody had a Jet magazine. I think at the time Chairman Bobby was in the office, and he says, "Ooh, we got to do something about that too." Dr. Bert Small, who's still in practice, part-time, created the Sickle Cell Anemia Foundation. Reverberated here and around the world, and we need it again today. We just, with one of our other collaborative network partners, the UCF Benioff Hospital, Children's Hospital. We're working right with them because they celebrated the 50th anniversary of the Sickle Cell Clinic, which we helped create. Now we're looking at testing again. We're looking at going out. No publicity about that. So there is a cure. One of the people in our network is a pharmacist, but his day job is he negotiates with the drug companies for 15 million Medi-Cal. I'm just letting you guys know the folks and the passion that are part of this network. He has been really animate. A lot of people who are suffering out there off of psychotropic drugs, the mental issues, he's been taking young men and homeless people and educating them about you don't need these prescriptions and the side effects. He did it for all of us in our network. So this is another concept that we're going to be going into the community, having people to examine with these pharmacists the prescriptions that you have, so you can go back to a doctor and tell them, I don't need this. So we're seeing these people also getting a hold of these psychotropics. Most of the time we see a lot of people out here who are exasperated by taking not only fentanyl, but all these other drugs involved. No information about that. Every one of those concepts that you see, from the pre-ambulance program to the various 17 health clinics. I think it's Mary Bethune of New York, who's the New York State Commissioner. When you start talking about her career, all she'll talk about is how she cut her teeth in the Black Panther Party health clinics. Heck, Hillary Clinton was a law student, worked on Bobby Seale and Eric Huggins' campaign when they were locked up in New Haven. I mean, there's a lot of people who were involved at that point in time. No publicity. So, when we did what we did, people asked us, why did we do it? We said it had to be done. We took part of our lives and set them aside to do what we had to do. We came off the campuses. People came back from Vietnam, and we had a whole level of community workers, including lawyers, doctors, you name it. They were all part of it, who we call community, including people like Barbara Lee, Ron Dellums, Cecil Williams. The list goes on. They took these same programs and duplicated all over the country. And then, of course, we went global in everything that we did. It's the very same programs. The 8 points of attention for South Africa were derived from the 10-point platform program. We found this out from the ANC. So what we did and what we continue to do today is how do we stop this pipeline of young people? And they're getting younger, you know, and if we keep this up, we'll be, you know, you got to try 9-year-olds now. I mean, that's where it's going. So how is that happening in this city? And the narrative is not talking about that. And I'm going to tell you something else. The more that people are demonizing this city, the more the people are trying to talk about the work that you're doing and anyone else that's really here for the people, guess what? All over the country, it's bringing more people to say that's not true. If they're attacking Oakland and lawyers and doctors, people who are doing the work here, then they're saying it's not true. So I'm here to let you know that. But as I was saying earlier on that, one thing that we want to do is we want to have those sessions about know your rights. That's something that if you decide to do so, having a forum. And we're talking about before people who want to know. We start with the children. They want to know. They need to know. That will be preventative measures. Everything we did was preventative. I want to prevent you from being part of that pipeline and going down that line. And even, and I'm going to say it again, some people are so far gone, I'll be the first to tell you. And it hurts to the heart when you try everything you can. You're there for them. And I'm going to say this, when you take them to court, you really want to see justice. But sometimes people have to learn in that respect. But the thing about it is we learned that a long time ago. And we even try to work with them then. But we have to reach the ones who are now vulnerable. They're saying, I want help. I need a path. Show me something different. And it's not being done. So, just like we did before, there's no publicity. And you know what? Streets get named around here. People name streets for rappers, right? But there's so many people in Oakland whose name should be on the street sign. Who should be known. Oakland is known for people who never get recognition. Us, we care less. We are living our purpose. And what we do, we're doing it selflessly. And then not for any awards or anything like that. So, just like coming here, when we got this call, I said this is a great opportunity to instill that there is hope, that there are people out there who are out here avidly working on your behalf. We know how, you don't tell Black Panther Party is how important it is to have good lawyer, good legal help on their side. I mean, if you think about it, and for us, we were fortunate. We had a lot of Hollywood, Marlon Brando, The Godfather, Shirley MacLaine, Warren Beatty, all these iconic stars, and were supporting the Black Panther Party. On the East Coast, Leonard Bernstein, symphony director, he would have socialite parties on Park Avenue. And these people would write checks to the programs in the party. John Lennon, Yoko Ono, and of course, I just want to mention that that's the book, Party Music, a foreword written by Boots Riley. An amazing expose by Jeff Chang, Pat Thomas, all these people. But everything that we did was for a purpose and a reason. We did that to bring artists and people together, which they reached out into the community and were able to reach the youth. They reached out in the community as stars put their careers on the line. And this was true of athletes like Bill Russell, Al Lewis, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. They all came to the table across the board. So it wasn't the component of what you do legally. I'm imploring each and every one of you the fact that being able to inform people about their legal rights. You will see a whole different change in the community. And that when they come to you, there'll be willingness to do that. I'm going to tell you another thing that the community is dealing with right now. This thing about don't ask, don't tell, or don't tell what you see, that's about to go away. And I'm saying there's a rising fed upness of people in the community in general. If you don't want to quit, then you're not going to get acquitted. We'll acquit you, but it will be in that kind of way. We'll push you out of the community. So there's a lot of people of this fervor rising up because they're tired of being victims. And actually, what percentage is creating this concept? What, maybe 2% of the population, 1% here in Oakland?
Well, that's
crime.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We in our work, you mentioned earlier, you said talking about people who some might say are too far gone.
Yes.
And to be really clear, you know, we are representing those that, for some people, are far gone. But we have to, and we do remain hopeful. And we are not always in a position to necessarily provide all those services in the moment to help them to get out of the situation. Sometimes we have to put the Band-Aids on where we're at with them. But I think we're really struggling as a community with how to fight against the narrative that, because I certainly don't feel that people think it's not true. I don't get the feeling that people aren't buying into the narrative that Oakland's all bad. I think there's a lot of people right now who are feeling that. There's a lot of social media around it. There's recalls, a lot going on. And so we really are trying to grapple with how do we kind of bring back that element of humanity that you talked about, so that people can kind of rally together to move through this time, rather than demonizing our people who are our clients all the time. If that makes sense.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. The point that I was making was, how come there isn't any talk or coverage about what you just said, what you're doing? How come the media hasn't? Look, we put on stuff all the time. Do you think they show up? And it all ends up of, look at what's happening in our community. So that is the key. What? Should we have a conversation with our illustrious Fox Channel 2, who covers some of the craziest stuff, like, what's that show they got on now? What You Don't Like, or some old crazy, it's just stupid. So they're not news, they're not reporters. So how do we as a group go to them and mention that, why aren't you covering the good things? Now, our network, we have thousands of followers. I don't know how many right now. But our information is going out everywhere, and we're getting unbelievable responses locally on the positive stuff that we're putting out. So the idea is to put the narrative of the heart. Have you guys ever done anything that talks about the work that you guys do recently?
Of course, yeah,
Okay.
all the time.
You have all the time? That goes in front of the average person in the public. The best way to do that is to be able to do these presentations with the community. Like, use a facility like out there where Serena is, EOYDC. We originally ran that center years ago when it first started. Call them and say, look, we want to get a group of people together. Anybody who has a case or may have a case, you'll probably get 500 people to show up, right? And to talk about the positive aspect of what is happening with the work that you're doing. Because what they say about public defenders is like, oh, they're going to lunch with the prosecutor. When they come back, then they made a deal for your life. You want to know? That's what the public says. That's a lot of times why they have this attitude, oh, you're just going to sell me down the river. A public defender, that's like not having a lawyer involved. That's not what Dr. Ness saying. That's what the community is saying overall. So when they come to you, it's like this already. So the point is, when they come to you, by having these concepts or getting this information out to them, I'm going to tell you something. Underlying fact, I work with a lot of organizations out there. That Black Joy Parade with all the folks coming together, that's part of the joy of this city. There is so much goodness going on out there. We're meeting with people every day from every corner of this community, every walk of life. So you have to realize too, how long has Oakland been demonized? Forever. I had to pat a friend of mine on his back. He hung his head. I said, I know you live in San Francisco. I said, it's never happened like this. But we got to look at the political ramifications. We get calls from all over, and my friend in D.C. said, yeah, they're calling California, the professionals, everybody out there, communist California. So what we see with the demonization is the same thing we saw before. And I'm going to tell you, how did we survive that? We talked about the great covering that kept us mentally stable. When you turn turned on the television one day, and the illustrious J. Edgar Hoover was pointing and saying, "You are the greatest internal threat. Yeah, you 19, 20-year-olds to the security of the United States. And you are domestic terrorists." This is what we were running. This was not a new, this went all over. 75% of the articles, 80%, New York Times, doing the print, were written by FBI agents and people who are against. You have to realize what the machine is that's against everything that we do. No matter whether you're a lawyer in California, a professional, you're all communists. This is the message that's going across America. The demonization is part of the politics of America. And we survived it when we were young, and we realized we're helping our people. And so when we got that demonization, the community would say, "I just ate at the breakfast program with my daughter. Now I'm going to the health clinic." All it's doing for us is rallying them around the party and the work that we were doing. And when we see a similar thing happen with somebody who's running for office right now, the more they get attacked. And he made that dumb statement the other day, the mugshot statement. Black people can identify with me because I'm in the legal system like them in a criminal case with a mugshot. This is what he said the other day. How insulting, right? But he's being attacked, and the more he attacks him, the bigger his base is becoming. So get ready. Hopefully it doesn't become a Hillary Clinton moment, but from all what we see and how they're playing this demonization of liberals, you people in California, how you failed, and then they show pictures of a homeless camp, or they show pictures of San Francisco Tenderloin, right? So this is what the demonization is based upon, they don't show Lake Merritt. They don't show downtown Oakland when people come here. Wow, they don't show people riding bicycles. They don't go into the schools. They don't come to the courthouse and see the work that you guys are doing in action. So think on that level. The demonization is coming from those that are doing everything to discredit who you are as a human being, human rights. And we realize that because we see the similarities of the same thing that's happening then and now. The list of the White House enemy list, the Black Panther Party was on top, but it went even down to Girl Scouts and churches and students and lawyers and doctors. Anybody who defended the so-called dispossessed or disenfranchised community, you're on the list too, because you're contrary to that particular ideology. So, just like we said before, it's not about politics. What we see in the world is not about politics. It's about being a human being or not being a human being. One of my closest friends is in this van. They talk about, we had everybody. You can't see him in the back. His name was David Levison. Went on to become a lawyer. Levison, my good buddy, Jewish member of the Jewish community. That was one of our biggest support entities. Young people from all over. It wasn't about your religion. It was about what you thought about all of us. And our motto was, an attack against one is an attack against all. And this includes our brothers and sisters, students from Iran, Palestine, Iraq, everywhere. We all join together as young people to say, what affects you here affects you anywhere. So it's that picture of propaganda that they're using to even wear down people. But do you see housing prices dropping? Do we still see buildings going up? What this is a preparation to change the whole community of what Oakland was. We call it the forced migration, to where it becomes totally unaffordable. How can you now tell us that the figure came out, I think, they're trying to set up what classes are again. $130,000, $27,000 in Santa Clara is your lower middle class. And I think one area, if you make that, you can get SNAP. So we're talking, and then when you talk on medium income and housing affordable, as opposed to housing according to income. I hope all of you have a chance to go by 7th and Campbell. Take a look at that. We're probably dedicated, I think in May, a 76-unit apartment complex. that former chairwoman, Elaine Brown, got these developers together, raised almost $100 million to get it built, and no one in there will pay more than $300 a month for the next 15 years. The state got involved. There's a concept there. We got Newsom involved. This could be done everywhere. The building's going to be called the Black Panther, and it's going to begin the renaissance of West Oakland. But it's according to income. And when you have people on the streets, the destabilization of youth, a family, I know a family, when they lost their home, the mothers and daughters were able to get shelter. The sons didn't get any. So what they ended up doing is joining forces with their street family, who were just as limited in terms of what their responsibility as a young male was supposed to be, and they started coming together and doing criminal activity. And it started with just to eat, and it's gone far beyond that at this point in time. So the destabilization was created, taken away with no decent housing. But here she is, got this building built in the city of Oakland. Can't talk about a housing. It should be according to income, not if you make $80,000 or $90,000 a year in Alameda County. And that's barely affordable for anybody who's making that at this point in time. It's just getting ridiculous. So these are formulas that put, you don't see any property values dropping. Oakland is still, I don't care. See, this is how they've always done. They put it in people's heads here in Oakland, in our area, that all this is going on. Has anyone checked the statistics in Montgomery, Alabama, or Philadelphia, or Minnesota, where we spoke there, National NAACP conference last year. Also did the Juneteenth event with the George Floyd family. I mean, they're off the hook. If you look at what's going on here, we become localized. And I can tell you, I know your counterparts in those cities, some of them, it's just overwhelming what's taking place. And then with the advent of other folks being able to come here, another divisive thing, we may see it here, is that the community is getting alarmed and upset because folks who are coming to America now, certain folks, are getting rent, they're getting apartments, they're getting the jobs, and they're leaving out the general community. We're working with stopping this divide and conquer concept in Philadelphia, in Chicago, and we're working with our counterparts and people in New York City right now to educate them not to fall victim to what is taking place. The new workforce, as Biden calls them, and then the warehousing of black and brown people in America, or anyone who opposes what we see at this point in time. So, the demonization, again, is politically driven. What we see, the demonization here, and I tell people, you don't see any property values. You see new buildings going up. They're preparing for changing the whole concept what Oakland, California has always been about. Remember, before the pandemic, it was supposed to be the bedroom community for the tech industry. Now, that's where it started. We hear rumblings on the street. We're going to start robbing these people. What are you talking about? Man, we ain't got nothing. They got it all. And then nobody won't help us. And then young men getting out of prison, in jail. Hey, I tried to get a job, but they talk about I got a felony. Then they tell me they can't vote. I said, yes, you can. You only spent time in the county. I'm going to take you down there and get you voted because you have a right to be legal. You just spent time in prison. These are legal concepts they didn't know. So we saw this rumbling rising. When we saw young men from this community, 25, 20 out begging, you got $1 to eat. You don't see them anymore, do you? That's because they're involved in this activity. I don't make any excuses for people's behavior. When your back is against the wall, you have no other recourse. And you may have a little brother and sister, and you helping your mama. Most of what's going on, they take that back to buy clothes and food. They got any money for their mama and their little brothers and sisters. I know this for a fact. So these are things that we always have to think about. Not just the end result, how they got there. And I know you can't weigh in all the time on those things. But that's what we have done and will continue to do. And I don't know how that concept could be worked out. The special people that you may be working with, hey, I got somebody you can talk with. Because you're looking at you don't have a way out, and you're tired of where you're at. And every time you turn around, you got an issue, you got a situation. I really would like to talk to somebody. Those are the people that we would love to talk with. The concept we did before. And trust me, like I said, we don't remember the people that we worked with, the San Quentin Six, George Jackson, who was our field marshal. We were very active in the prison system. One of our programs was a busing the prison program, and we had a commissary program where we were providing money on books for about 500 prisoners. When they got out, they would come to our learning center. When they got out, they would be re-engaged with their families. While they were in there, we were educating them about alternatives so they would not fall back into the same situation. It's all documented. It worked. I'm sorry.
So, what I hear you saying, which is, I think, for us, what we are constantly have to reminding ourselves of is that, first of all of these issues are part of a bigger issue, bigger systemic issue.
Yes.
And that Oakland is not unique necessarily in some of the things that are going on and some of the struggles. And as we all know, that our clients, the communities we serve, have gotten here for reasons that all of us have to explore. I wanted to open it up. If there's anything that Dr. Ned talked about that people have questions on, I want to use this last little bit for questions and just anything people have questions on.
And that's what I mentioned before we got started. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, it was difficult anytime I come before a group to give you an overview as much as I possibly can. And we'll talk about how you can get more information and do your own research. Because everything I'm telling you, one thing, before we answer, one thing we tell everybody is that when we speak, it's not based upon conjecture, it's not based upon opinion, it's based upon documented experience and fact. And that's what we're passing on.
So I had a question.
Yeah.
I have multiple young Black clients who are in a situation very similar to kind of what you outlined, where they feel very hopeless and demonized in the community. So I know you mentioned that they have someone to reach out to. I was curious who they can reach out to. Like, is it you? Are you a resource that we can use to give people in our community who have these struggles, who have these issues?
Absolutely.
Okay.
See, the network itself is composed of, I use the phrase, from the streets to the Congress seats, and everyone in between, compassionate people. There's a whole army of, big brother figures and even senior father figures who were here during that period, who experienced, some of them, like my wife, who experienced, in San Francisco, the Black Panther Party, who, in terms of their tutoring the school and how it kept her going in her life. So absolutely, that's one reason why we're here today. The idea is to do what we can and continue. I mean, we thought we'd never be here. As a matter of fact, very quickly, we might not have independent for 4 of our heroes. 2 white Temple University professors, 1 cab driver, and a female bartender. And what they did during the Ali Frazier fight, they were the ones who broke into this FBI office and found the COINTELPRO papers with the words, using Malcolm's words, eliminate by any means necessary. And when 2016, I met a State Department gentleman who was at the museum. Big tall guy, taps me on the shoulder at me. He says, "You guys deserve the best." He says, "You're always ahead of us. You understood how we thought." And I asked him, that phrase the government says, "Everything's on the table." I said, "Everything actually on the table with us?" He looked at me and said, He said, "But you always were a step ahead of us. You understood. This was the State Department, the DIA, the CIA, the NSA, firearms, tobacco, and Richard Nixon's whole White House staff. It's all documented. Why would they try to stop what we were doing? Because we had discovered the concept of the playbook. We were able to disseminate it in a scientific, analytical manner, and break down all that jargon of struggle and all this and names of Marxist Leninism, all that, and brought it down into America of how it affected people in America. But not only just in the black community, but we saw the same similarities in working class, in brown community, the reservations, then it's the AIM, American Indian Movement, the story of the United Farm Workers, who we supported for 5 years. They were marching down the street on 85th, came down the street, it was a hot day. We were in our office, we had moved it to 8501. We said, who are you people? We're the United Farm Workers. Do you have any water? We started speaking with them, closed our office, marched 20 blocks to our learning center and school fed them, and began a 5-year relationship which helped them boycott as well as close down. When we got on the picket line, we told them to sit down because they were threatened. We closed down 2,000 Safeway stores, boycott grapes and lettuce. Of course, the union has issues, and we're going back to re-examine that history. If Bobby Seale had been elected, the plan was to have Cesar Chavez as administrator in the city of Oakland. And the process was going to be to have responsible people always elected in our city that would take care of the community and the funds. And it would be generational. The next generation would take over the responsibility, where Oakland would not have had this. They knew that. So that was the concept. So I'm bringing all this, we'll be overjoyed to work in that capacity.
I think something that I've noticed a lot about the Black Panther Party and just generally about the way I interact with my generation and both of those things is that there's a lot of people, especially in my age, who are like, they want to say the right thing, they want to do the right thing, but kind of what you're saying about early on with Antifa, there's a lot of people in our generation who maybe don't have the like principle structure to talk about that. Like you talked about bringing Marxist Leninism down to like a simple language that actually applies to Americans here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if you have, maybe from your experience, like different strategies about how to talk to people, maybe younger people, older people, about like how we actually see the world and how we understand how capitalism is working in these different ways, and so like try to explain those in simple terms. Because I struggle with that with a lot of people I know who are my age, and I struggle with that even with like my parents, or like old and stuff like that.
Well, for us, like I would tell you, out of the age, they can be young children. And if you look at the programs, the 65, as a tech guy told me, he says, those are 65 startups. He said, these health clinics would have been worth billions. You go to Seattle, Carroll Dow Health Center, 3 stories, still open. That's one that we started. And I think we have a dental clinic that we started in Portland that's still open. But the 65 survival programs that you see on the back, when we talk to people, we describe that how we did. I'll give you a perfect example. When we during the first origin period, when Eldridge Cleaver was making his trek across the world, setting up these diplomatic relations, when we went to North Korea, there was a phrase that we adopted. And at that point in time, they were the most prosperous, quote unquote, non-democracy called country in the world. They used a term called juche. We still use it today. Juche. Use what you got to get what you need. What you think is change or revolutionary change may not be that today. And so we talk about today is educating people, getting them to understand what they've been missing before. So in looking at those concepts and having experienced those, and one thing we did for the community, what's going on in the community? We broke it down initially in 3 simple levels. And a lot of people learn some very good words when they walk up to a business person, a person in the community, and say, you're just an avaricious businessman. And you go like, what does that word mean? Look it up. Or you're a demagogic politician. And of course, you're the fascist pig police. You're here to oppress us. You work and you represent the business people who are taking money out of our community and not giving back, and you're working on behalf of the greedy politicians and the companies. This was the average person in the community, how we broke down that concept of how the communities were being controlled. So, in breaking it down, we also take and identify all the players in every community. In other words, let me tell you about the heroes, as we like to call them, the unsung people you don't know about that look like you that were part of the movement. They were like, we never knew this. Of course you didn't. I said, do you think that we could have existed from 1966 to 1982 when the Black Panther Party was officially dissolved without the community, with everything they were throwing at us? So that's when we tell that story and we tell how we came together. You know, when I was talking to a group of Ohlone brothers and sisters, we talked about the Native American movement and the relationship of the Black Panther Party and AIM and Leonard Peltier and Dennis Ames, all my brothers and sisters. So there's a connection for everybody. And so when you have those groups, you could easily call on us. We'd be more than happy to come and explain the relationship of all of us. It was all about, when I would sit down with anybody beyond their politics, what do you want? I want a good life. Me too. What do you want for your kids? I want them to be able to go to school and live the life they want. I want them to have everything that they deserve without any hindrance. Me too. Now, I don't care who you think you vote for. Isn't that the same thing that all Americans want? Remember, everything we did was stood upon the Constitution. And we still stand upon that today. And the amendment rights. That is another class of people need to know. That goes in with the legal aspect. What are your amendment rights? What happens when you give up your Fourth Amendment? When you plead no contest? Do you realize how many people don't know what that means? And maybe before you talk to them, they've already done it. Because, oh, just go ahead and plead. They have no idea what their legal ramifications are in terms of that. And so then, when it doesn't work out because they didn't understand, who do they want to blame? I'm looking at you guys. Oh, it's her fault. His fault because he didn't represent me right. So, by having this understanding of your legal rights, your amendment rights, before you come in and say, when you step into that arena, these people here are here to help you. And we stand upon that as original Black Panther Party members. And people say, because you guys do say that we believe it. It has nothing to do with your ability to persuade people. But that's what we have to do. If we don't bring all our components together and show the people in this city, in this country, that who we are, and I keep telling you guys, I know what you said, but people come to me all the time. We get people from Sweden, we get people from schools all over, we get visitors from everywhere, and the first thing they say is, we know you guys, they talk about the city, and what's the old saying? If they ain't talking about you, you're not doing nothing. You have to think of it like, if you're not doing anything right, then they're not talking about you. If not demonizing you, making your city look like it's bad, or you don't know what you're doing, then you're doing something right. So you have to think in that respect. So I hope that I helped that, because I know, the reason is, when you talk to people, they'll tell you, like, that's your opinion. But when they talk to us, we're showing them historical documentation that they cannot. In other words, we have a resume that is second to none. And it's documented, and it is still global. So that is the difference when we talk to people. That helps you also get them to understand what is happening. So the language can be different if I'm talking to somebody in the community, whether I'm talking to illustrious group like you lawyers or medical doctors, which we do. As a matter of fact, we got a group of medical students who will probably be involved. They started a club called Junior Care Clinic at UC. I'm supposed to meet with them like 9 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock in the evening, I think May 7th. But they are chomping at the bits to do preventative health care like we did with health clinics. But they could also be instrumental in becoming that wave of people to say, hey, I'm your big brother, your big sister, you can do this too, I'm there with you. When you feel isolated and you see nothing in front of you, nothing behind you, and nothing around you, and there seems like no help, hope, and then all of a sudden you guys are there to help, you appear out of nowhere. Like, I'm here, I don't trust you. Why should I trust you? Nobody's ever helped me before. I don't trust you. I think you're going to sell me down the river. So, with showing the concern that we do care, so when they get into that knowing the people who are really here to help them and not to sell them down the river. So understanding the cause, the effect, where they came from, and when you talk to certain people, and they may not open up all the way, but we have our ways. When they talk to us, we talk to them. I used to have these sessions on 94th and Arthur. Deep East Oakland. And I was invited by a young man every Wednesday. He said, I want you to talk to my homies. He'd come in there, and there'd be like 20 people in there, right? I have to open the window to air it out. And they tell me, we want to get that knowledge. We'd rather get that knowledge from you, elder, to be out here on these corners. And I would do things like explain business to them, like they do basic terms. This is how you have to engage in how they think also. Like a business concept, or what is a hostile takeover? Right? What is a merger and acquisition? Well, they use their strengths and ability of how they relate in the community. A merger and acquisition is, we take over another territory. I say, no, don't look at it that way. You come up with somebody, and they're able to do this, and you're able to do that, and you come together and everybody profits. So that's what America does. So we get it. I said, everything that you do in the community is part of America. And how in the world can you tell our children, when they turn on the TV, and America is carrying the AK-47s or whatever weapons they carry, M16s, and we're always constantly talking about shooting somebody or using force to take over country. And then your child asks you, hey, you're telling us to talk to people, but they say, we'll just kill people. Why are they killing these babies in America? So the contradiction of what our youth see, right? And they see the behavior of our nation as a whole, and they emulate that behavior. With the domestic gun sales that we're seeing, they're domestic gun runners. Their specialty is selling in the urban community. 9-year-olds walking around with weapons. Come on now, 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, everybody got a gun, right? I'm preaching to the choir, man. You guys know things better than I do.
I'm gonna see if anybody else, you wanna see if anybody else has other.
Yes, go right ahead. Yes, go ahead.
One super quick question.
No, go right ahead.
For lots of us have clients that we are connecting to community organizations to do that kind of transformative work. For those clients, or shall I say, our social workers doing the work, not us lawyers. For those clients, can they get a fee waiver to go on the tour so that they get that education and inspiration, and even maybe like a certificate that they went on this, so that we can put it in their mitigation package, what they're doing to try to transform their lives?
I like that idea. I like that idea, because that gives us a chance to really talk to them beyond it. And I'll say this, when I talk to the youth, they tell all of us, I could sit and listen to you for hours. I'm getting that knowledge. I didn't know these things. So that's what it really is. Yes, they need that understanding, knowledge, and inspiration. And once they start hearing it and getting it, honestly, it changes the whole. I had a group of young men get angry. I give them an autobiography of Malcolm X. Malcolm did it all. Malcolm evolved from a thug, as they called it, to a bipper, robber, pimp. He did everything. But then to the end, he realized it was about all of us. It was a people's struggle. When he made that last trip to Mecca, that's when they said, you got to go. He's about Martin Luther King, would listen to the Ballad of the Bullet and the House Negro and the Field Negro. He listened to Malcolm for inspiration. There was that ongoing, so the knowledge and the hope, and I love that. That's
And so,
yes.
I think the issue is that most of our clients don't have the means. And so that might be one way in terms of partnering that we could talk about.
Absolutely. We could even arrange something with a network where I used to have ticket sessions with the young men. We'd have pizza, and we would talk about, and here's the thing. What was it like when you grew up, Elder? Growing up when we had semblance of our family. That was the last era when we had real solid black families. What was it like growing up? Well, when I could go on the next block with the neighbor and the kids could be out and everybody could, you mean to tell me it used to be like that? This is the kind of conversations, especially with young males, that we have, and of course, we have women of the network for the females. And then we come together as a group. But yes, them not knowing these things and learning and growing, and then when they hear what we went through, when we tell them, say, well, you tell us about your life. When we tell them what we've been through as young people in the Black Panther Party, they got long hair and it ends up like Don King's, right? What were you gonna tell me? Oh, nothing. What you told me was wow, So yes, that's very important. They don't have that connection. I've had 35, 40-year-old men tell me you're the first father figure, and I have two young men that insisted on them being my godsons. So I said, okay, I am your godfather, not like the one in the movies. Okay, so this is the lack, and I say this across the board. That would be a great thing to do. And the other aspect that you were talking about, we're all for it. We're ready. And also talking to various groups. You have a meeting. We'd love to do that and help people to get the big picture and see that it is a common issue that we face. Where are we going? I mean, this next few months is going to be like a roller coaster ride, folks. Very scary time right now. The momentum is gathering for opposition. They're playing these cards. And they're actually, on the other side of the fence, are actually a lot of folks who've gone through that situation who have nothing in our community are jumping ship, believe it or not. We're hearing a lot of that. And they're playing on all these issues and blaming it on, not just blaming it on the professionals. They're blaming it on what goes on in our cities, inept elected officials and lawyers, and that's what they're saying. And we know better. So we're not going to accept it. We're not going to accept it at all. So I just wanted to let you know, yes, on both sides, that your answer, yes, and few, yes.
Any other questions as we close out? Well, Dr. Mann, thank you very much. We really appreciated hearing and being inspired just in terms of what's going on currently, how it connects with the history, and how we can move forward. There's a lot of things to think about.
And I definitely appreciate you guys having me here and being able to listen in a message of resilience. This is a message of hope. We speak to the community on your behalf. We will do that. We will talk to our people in the community, talking about how important it is to understand, but teach them the legal rights. When you go in there, you go in there respectful. You need to know what your rights are when you go to court. Just to closing, I remember right after the party ended, me and another young man, his name was Orlando Vaughn. He passed away. We used to put on a suit. We stand out right in front of this courthouse and people will come out. Oh, you going to court? And we have a handbook. We say, listen, when you talk to your lawyer, make sure you go in, you follow all their instructions. Who's your public defender? Blah, blah, blah. Make sure you follow it. But when you're in court, here's your rights. Here's how you should conduct yourself. And they would get it, right? So thank you for telling me that. And I said, trust in what they say and what they do. Don't jump ship just because the preliminary case. This is what they think. When they see, I guess, the first group come in with the files that big, the first thing the public says, I want to let you guys, they haven't even looked at my case. No, this is the preliminary concept of the court system. They don't understand that. The trust level drops right there. I'm telling you from what we're told also. We question people. So on our end, it's about creating that information about knowing your legal rights. And we need something like that. Here's what your public defender will do for you. I mean, I'm all for creating something like that, a basic concept, where they can get that information. And we'll make sure that people get it. We'll make sure that organizations get it. That's a big issue in our community right now. You won't have any problem getting the community because every mom or everybody in the community, both black, white, and brown, their children are having issues across the board, especially when they listen to this mumble rap that they're listening to. Oh, just so you guys know, in closing, we're creating I was approached by a group of artists, including the Fabulous Negritos and Grammy Awards winning people. We want to create what we call the message of resilience to change what is being said, like we did in the music. There's a lot of people sick and tired of this negativity that's promoting our kids and people to go out and shoot somebody. And after they get looped up, that weighs in on them. They influence of negative lyrics. We talk to them about this, have them do things. They start living what they're hearing. And the ironic thing, the people who are making the records, all right, living behind what we call closed gates. You know, in other words, they're wearing Armani suits, driving in Maseratis, but telling the kids in the community that they're this, and they enact it out. So all these components, we're weighing in on that. But I'm excited. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward. As soon as you want to, we can begin talking about that process. We love to meet. We have folks ready on that end. It's a community issue. And if you love this city like I do, this city has the unbelievable roots and history of, as our Muslim brothers and sisters call Oakland, the imperial homeland of revolutionary and social change. And it's still looked at that way. So please, 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 don't lose hope. Don't lose hope about what we see in, well, it's gone beyond Oakland now, right? They're using the term East Bay. Have you noticed that? East Bay and Contra. I mean, it's like the whole side of the Bay Area in San Francisco, we're all demonized now. So if you live out in Antioch, Concord, Walker Creek, you're demonized too. But thank you all so much. Looking forward to continuation